This episode is brought to you by Indeed. We're driven by the search for better, but when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. Listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/MBO. Terms and conditions apply.
What's going on, guys? Welcome to Real Men Talk. Today, we'll be talking about the weight of a man. We know as men, and I'm sure you're very well aware, the amount of weight that we carry as men, the different hats that we carry, or we wear, the pressure that is upon us as men to be leaders, to be the example, to be the spiritual leader of our homes, to be all these different things, and so today we're gonna start talking about it, and this is probably going to end up being a two-part podcast, but I'm excited to get into it with you guys. I'm excited to have this conversation with Kyler. So let's get started on Real Men Talk.
Welcome to Real Men Talk, discussing the tough issues facing men and their families every day. Here's Anthony Kernut and Kyler Sowell.
All right, what's going on, guys? What's up, Kyler?
Hey, guys, what's happening?
All right, so today, weight of a man. I think this is going to be a very important conversation because this is something that we can all relate to in some form or fashion. Not that the rest of them aren't, but I think in the time in which we live, the weight that we carry is it seems so much more now than whatever has been, mm-hmm. and I know that, I think this is going to be good because you and I, Kyler, are in different stages of our lives and stuff. And so the listeners get to see both parts of it. I've got college kids, you've got young kids, and so, we get to see those stages. And because here's the thing, as a man, you always have to be aware of the weight that you carry, because sometimes it could be, if you continue to try to do it by yourself, it could be too much.
Yes.
It can be, it's such a heavy weight at times that when we go to, if we don't depress, if we don't, not too long ago we talked about the importance of getting away and spending time in prayer and rest and reloading and different things like that. There are seasons, that's so crucial because we wear so much weight. We're trying to take care of the kids. You're trying to be a good husband. You're trying to work. You're trying to do all these different things, provide and, take care of the finances and, be a spiritual leader at church and be a leader at church and do ministry and all this stuff. And it can just be completely overwhelming.
Yes, it can be.
And we see this example throughout the Bible. We see this example of men and stuff in the Bible of the different weights that we carry as men and the different. It can just be so much. This isn't in our notes, but we just talked about Elijah not too long ago, and him sitting underneath the rock in the cave and wanting to die, just from the weight of all the things that were going on around him. You see this just constantly, throughout the Bible, and nothing's changed. We still, as men today in 2024, we still wear so much weight. We should anyway. So it's not that the idea is not to get rid of the weight.
Right.
The idea is to be able to handle the weight.
Right.
It's like I think of like bodybuilding. If you're wanting to compete, right? If you're wanting to compete, you have to. It's not about taking on less weight. It's about conditioning yourself to take on more weight, right? You do other things to support muscles that you need for the competition that you're doing, for instance, if you're squats, one of them, if you're doing bodybuilding, and so not only do you have to squat all the time, but you have to work your quads, and you have to work your glutes, you have to all those muscles have got to be strong.
Yes.
In order to have a good, successful bodybuilding squat, right? Mm-hmm. If you just go in and just try to squat over and over and over and over, eventually you're going to hit a plateau. Eventually you're going to gas out. You're not going to be able to go anymore. And so you have to build up those other muscles. And that's kind of the way it is. You, as men, it's not about, okay, I can't take this responsibility, so I'm just going to check out. No, I have to condition myself to be the man that God has called me to be. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of what I would like to talk about today, and then what we're going to talk about today. And so, Kyler, go ahead.
No, I just so when you think about the weight of a man, there's a certain weight that all men have to bear, and they should bear. I mean, we have to bear the weight of our families. We have to bear the weight of carry the weight. And it's a privilege to get to carry those, because me and my wife are having this conversation before I came over here on the podcast, but there's specific roles that men and women play. And I actually told her, she was trying to be like, here's what she wanted to do. So for Mother's Day, this was her idea, and it was hilarious because I just straight up told her, no, not going to happen. She goes, this is what I want you to do. She was like, and she wants to do this because we always make Mother's Day super duper quick. I mean, we go out to lunch with my mom and my grandma and all of them, and then her family comes over at night. We're done. We just eat dinner and move on. We don't do anything extra. So her idea was on Saturday, they'll wake up, we'll make them brunch. They will make us a honey-do list of one major item and two small items, and they will go lay in the pool while we do the honey-do list. I said, what? I said, that's not going to happen. I said, not at all. And my brother-in-law in this conversation goes, that's fine, but we get to do that for you too. I said, nothing that I want done can she do. Right. I said, so what's the point of that? And then she continued on, and she was like, well, we have to carry the weight of motherhood. And I said, listen, if you want to blur the lines, you better talk to Jesus. I said, because I'm not that person. But I say that to say this, it's a funny story. But what I'm saying is there's a specific weight that we as men have to carry, but we don't ever talk about that weight. And we have to, as men, talk about that weight, because sometimes it's too heavy. It's a heavy burden. It's a heavy place. And when I think about this weight, it reminds me of, and everybody's gonna be like, well, you just Jesus juked this, but it's the weight that Jesus carried when he went to the cross. I mean, he carried that weight, but while he was there, he wasn't carrying that weight alone. I mean, he always had his Father with him, even though there was a time where, God turned away because in my head, he just couldn't watch his son do it. I mean, he knew he had to do it, but he just couldn't watch himself do it. But when he was up there, he was there for my sin. He wasn't there. Somebody said this the other day. The Lord wasn't there because he needed to be up there. He was there because you needed him to be up there. And it's true. I mean, he stayed on the cross for me, but that's the weight that we carry. We are constantly trying to carry our families, our communities, our churches, the people we're connected with. Mm-hmm. And you have to talk to people about that. Because if you don't talk to people about that, if you don't talk about that pressure, sometimes it becomes too much. Right. And that's when we break down, and that's when the devil gets to come in. And that's why we're having this conversation today, is to let men know that you need to have these conversations.
That's right. Well, and you look at, let's go back to Jesus, and in the garden, he took 3 disciples with him, right? And, and he come back, he's like, you couldn't just pray with me for 1 hour.
Right.
And it's not the fact that he actually needed them.
Right.
He wanted their support.
Yes.
right? Here he is, he's in the garden and he's travailing, God, if there's any other way, please let this cup pass me by.
Mm-hmm.
He knows what's coming. He understands. He's seen it before. He knows that it's going to be painful. He knows that it's going to be absolutely miserable. He's concentrating and praying so hard. He's sweating blood.
Mm-hmm.
You want to talk about carrying a weight, knowing that that's coming.
Right.
The anticipation of that amount of pain.
Yes.
It would in and of itself would make a man crumble.
Right. And on the flip side, sometimes we carry the weight that's not our own.
That's true. Sometimes we do.
And that's on purpose, is so we can help each other carry those weights.
That's right.
But every time somebody texts you to pray, you're helping them carry that weight. You're helping them carry that burden. You're helping them carry that, because if they text you to pray, they know that you're going to. So it shares them. It helps them. And I did this. I may say this before. I don't know. If I did, I'm sorry. Go back and listen to the podcast. Sit it on. But the worship team did a kind of like afternoon where we just came together and we just worshiped with ourselves. Because when we're up there, we don't always get the chances to worship because we're trying to make sure that we're doing everything right. But when I spoke to them, it was heavy on my heart. The lyrics from one of the Maverick City songs. It was with all the faith in the room, what can the Lord not do? And I said, it's important for us to remember that we don't walk through trials and tribulations alone. He says, where two or more are gathered in my name, there am I in their midst. When two are in agreement, it shall be done. There's so many times where the Lord never says in the Bible, walk through this alone.
No.
He says, for I am with you. There's always somebody there, whether it's him or he's put somebody in your path. And that's where we have to remember that when we text somebody, when we ask for help, when we say something, that's helping somebody else carry that burden. It may not be our own burden to carry, but when we offer our help up to help carry that burden, when the guy on the road to, when Jesus carried the cross, when he carried it for him for a little bit, he helped carry that burden for just a second.
Right.
Just a second, which helped him get there. Because Jesus was weak. He was tired. He was beaten. I don't even know at that point in time what all had happened, but it was so much that we as men, when somebody reaches out, when they talk to us, when we just allow that openness, we get to carry those burdens that aren't ours.
Yes. And
it's good to do that. It's not a bad thing. When somebody asks for help, you let them ask for help.
Yes. Because here's the thing. We've all been in there, right?
Yes.
We have all been at the point where we're like, okay, I don't think I can do this anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And if you haven't, just wait, you will be. If you're a young guy, you've not been, you're like, I don't know that I've been there. You will be. Life will get to the point where it is crumbling you. And if you're not careful, it will do exactly that. It will crumble. It will crumble you, and spiritually, physically, mentally, emotionally, and it's just it is so much. And here we are. We're trying to do all these things. We're trying to take care of families. We're trying to raise kids. We're trying to pay for colleges. We're trying to do all these things that we're supposed to do, right, as men. Right. And it can be extremely difficult. But the thing is that, like Kyler said, we don't have to do it alone.
Yeah, we're not meant to. We're not supposed to. That's why we're called a community of believers, not individual believers.
That's right.
That's when he says, I've called the church is the people, the church, not the building. When he says these things, we have to make sure that we are speaking the word. When you dive into the word and you read the word, that's where you will find that everything we're saying is from God. It's not from us. We didn't write any of this our own. If anything, we need to put like a little thing at the bottom from, what is it, plagiarism? Cite the Bible over here at the side. That's what we need to do, because God says, for you are not alone. I am with you always. To the ends of the earth, he's there for us. And that's how we as men, we need to be. We need to be there for each other to the ends of the earth, whatever it is, without judgment, without anything, just say. And you don't have to. And here's where I think the flaw comes. Sometimes I think people feel like they need to share what the issue is.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't. There's no point for everybody to always know what you're going through. Now, if you need that, that's okay. You need that. But one of the things that I loved about when we pray sometimes is sometimes I'll feel led just to ask, does anybody have just an unspoken? Just something that you don't want to share, but you just need prayer. And I'll see like 4 or 5 hands up. And it's okay to know that. It's just recognizing, hey, I need a little bit of help this week or right now.
Right.
And good.
Well, and it's one of those things. I mean, you're spot on. And even if you're going to share it, it's not for everybody.
Mm-mm.
Right. You know, some things are, there are trials for you.
Yes.
Right. And some things other people don't understand.
Right.
Because it's not their trials, you know. And, last week we had talked about the importance of a Paul and a Timothy, you know, and I think it was last week. Maybe it was men's group. I can't remember, but it may have been men's group.
Now.
Yeah, it all blends together after a while. But, we were talking about the importance of a Paul and Timothy, which I've talked about on here before.
Right.
But, that's the importance of having that Paul in your life that you can't, that one person that you know that you could trust, right? Because not everybody can handle your weight.
No.
Right. They can't. That's the importance of like intercessory prayer.
Mm-hmm.
Right. You know, the Bible talks about, that's the importance of those types of things. And because it's not for everybody, there are things in my life that I've went through that I've been able to share with people that people are like, okay, they get. There's also been things in my life that I couldn't share with people or certain people because they can't, they're not mature enough for it.
No.
Right. They'll either just A, go run their mouth to everybody, or B, they just cannot simply understand it because it's not their battle to face.
No. And that's where we have to realize is that everybody has their own understanding. And when we try to make people understand things, then we often end up in failure. We can't make people see, we can't make people believe, we can't make people understand. So that's what we're saying is sometimes people won't understand the trial or the tribulation that you're going through. That's why when you ask for prayer, you need to be purposeful and intentional about who you ask. That ask people who, if you're going to go into detail, to people who are not going to pass judgment, people who are going to pray for you. They're not going to ask questions. If Anthony texts me, I don't need to know. Just say, hey man, I had a guy text me today. Actually, he's like, hey, I need prayer today. I got to go to the doctor. Got it. I don't need to know your condition. I don't need to know what's happening. I know you need healing. Mm-hmm. That's it. If somebody texts me, you need me to pray that God needs to intervene for you. Got it. Perfect. I don't have to know everything. That's not for me to know. God knows everything. He's the author and the finisher of everything said and done. Kyler's not. Right now, I'm not going to lie to you. Sometimes Kyler's flesh is like, well, what's happening? Well, I kind of want to know what's happening now. But what I'm saying is just make sure that you have those people that you surround yourself with, that community.
Yes.
Like at men's group, you can say, hey, I need prayer. And those men are going to pray for you. That's right. At church and your life groups, if you say, hey, I need prayer, those people are going to pray for you. You surround your people with those. You surround yourself with those types of people because it's okay not to go into, PowerPoint, 10-point PowerPoint or something like that. Right. You just need to go into the logistics of it because that weight that we carry is not to be carried alone. That's right. He said, come all ye who are heavy laden, I will give you rest. Right. He talks about his yoke, his the yoke is light and his burden is easy, or it may have those backwards, but that yoke is often when you read commentaries about that is that those yokes were made for two oxen, right? And so, it was that way that was the weight was distributed evenly between both oxen, and God's like, it's okay. I've got this. You can get in here with me. I'll be the other one. Mm-hmm. I will carry you along. I will help you, so no matter what you're going through, no matter what that weight is, you always have Jesus in your corner, but what Kyler's saying is it's also important to have other people in your corner. Yes. Other men, we've talked about the importance of men's groups and life groups and different things like that on this podcast constantly. Mm-hmm. But it's worth repeating again. You need people in your corner. Yes. You need people that can intercess prayer for you, that can stand in the gap for you, that can drag you along, that can kick you in the seat of the pants when you need it, that can, all these different things. And it's so vitally important. This is, and I will always be a huge, advocate for men's groups,
Because here's the thing, you get into like life groups and stuff like that. I want to say this, and I hope nobody misunderstands me. Women can't understand the weight that men carry.
Yes. And to caveat that, Anthony runs a life group. So he sees both sides.
I see both sides. I run a men's group and a life group.
Yeah.
And so women don't understand the weight that men carry. But that's not a negative way. Men can't understand the weight women carry. Right. They have their own weight. They have their own struggles, and it's not that it's any less important than they need women in their lives.
Yes.
Because men can't understand that they need women. Men need other men in their lives because women can't understand. Your wife can only understand a certain amount of the weight that you carry.
Right. And that's where that comes in with the like-minded individuals, where you surround yourself with that. Yes, your wife understands kind of like the path you're going through, but there's not a full understanding that she's going to, because someone who's walking the same path as you side by side is going to understand a little bit more.
Yes.
When they have to be the provider, when they have to do and care for a whole family, that's different. Now at home, someone else who's taking care of the children, who's walking that same path, they're going to understand more. And that's where we're coming from, is you find those people who are walking that same path with you, who has that understanding, and it completely changes it.
Yes, absolutely. And so this has been a fantastic conversation, a great intro to what we were doing, to the weight of the man. And so we're going to take a little break. When we come back, we're going to start talking about some of the characters in the Bible that have carried heavy weights. And so we'll be right back after this.
You're listening to Real Men Talk with Anthony Kernut and Kyler Sal. Don't go away. More engaging conversation coming up next.
If you want to join in the conversation, join us on Thursday nights at 6:30 p.m. We gather with other like-minded Christian brothers to discuss hard-hitting topics that affect men on a daily basis, and use a biblical approach to overcome common strongholds that affect our families. We show men the importance of being the spiritual leader of their home and what it means to be a real man in the eyes of Christ. Join us at the Palace of Praise located at 1400 Herschel Best Boulevard in Poplar Bluff, Missouri. We meet in room 400 every Thursday. Come be a part of the discussion.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. We're driven by the search for better, but when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. Listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/MBO. Terms and conditions apply.
Thanks for joining us on Real Men Talk. It's time for more man stuff. Here's Anthony and Kyler.
What's up, guys? Welcome back. We were talking about the weight of a man, and we kind of give an intro to it in the first half. And so we want to start talking about Job. When you talk about the weight a man carries, good night. I couldn't imagine being Job, right? Historically, Job was the first book written. And I think there's importance in that, in the fact that we see that life is not always going to be peachy, right? Life will be difficult at times. Life is absolutely going to be tough. And we have to understand that. And when you talk about, like the weight, losing his kids, losing all this, but there's a moment in there I think is absolutely profound. And I wish I had the verse right in front of me. I can't remember what it was. But there in Job, when his friends come and just sit with him, like they don't even say a word. Like they just come and they just sit down with somebody, with Job.
It's Job 2, verse 11 is where it starts. It says, "Now when Job's three friends heard of all this evil that had come upon him, they came each from his own place, Eliphaz and Temanite, Bildad the Shuhite, and Zophar the Naamathite. They made an appointment together to come to show him sympathy and comfort him. When they saw him from a distance, they did not recognize him, and they raised their voices and wept, and they tore their robes and sprinkled dust on their heads toward heaven. And they sat with him on the ground 7 days and 7 nights, and no one spoke a word to him, for they saw that his suffering was very great.
Yeah, and sometimes we just need people like that that will just come and just sit. So because if any of us have ever been in those moments, like there are moments we don't want to talk. We don't like the weight is just so it is so heavy. We can't.
Yeah.
We can't talk about it. We don't. We can't process. Verbally what is happening internally. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And if you've ever been there, then you understand what Job was going through, and his friends could see it. We were talking about having people in our corner. People, the importance of men's group, the importance of surrounding ourselves with men who understand that weight. Those 3 friends of Job, they understood that weight.
Yes.
They understood that Job just needed them close.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't have to talk. They didn't have to do anything else. They just needed to be there for him.
Yeah.
And we need people like that because that weight can become so heavy.
Yes, I mean, and especially with him, because when we look at Job, we look at all the trials that he went through. I mean, he had this perfect life. He was considered like the wealthiest man in that region at that point in time, if I'm not mistaken. And yeah, he was described as a wealthy and righteous man who lived in the land of Uz. He had a very large family, vast livestock, and great wealth. And I mean, and for that to then be taken, completely away from him. I mean, it's almost like the devil just wanted to poke fun. But God knew the strength behind him, the strength of that man, the strength that he could endure, the strength of, because you got to remember through this whole story, it can look almost like, why would God allow that? Why would God do that? Why would God, you could ask all these questions, but you got to remember that God looks at the inside, not the outside. God knows the heart. Yes. He knows the strength behind him. And that's where we have to get to. We have to get a Job type of strength when we're carrying these burdens, when we're carrying the weight of a man, is we have to have that strength behind it, that we can have all these trials and these tribulations and these things coming up against us. And a lot of people, they look at this and they're like, well, I don't want trials. I don't want tribulation or anything like that. I don't want hard times. Like when we become a Christian, they paint this like rose-colored glass thing that Christians then just have a picture perfect life.
Right.
Quite the opposite. Quite the opposite. You are more of a menace to the devil when you become a Christian. Yes. And this is what I tell people is if you are not going through trials, if you're not going through tribulations, if you are not having all these things happen to you, if there's a test not coming at you, then the devil doesn't count you as a factor.
You're not doing something right.
Right. And there's this, I went through a trial, I don't know, was it February, January? And all I could do, I was sitting there and I was like, I need the Lord to take care of this. I need the Lord to take care of this. I need the Lord to take care of this. Because I knew he could do it. I knew he had the strength that he could take care of this. But he put on my heart just to praise him through the storm. And I was like, why? What is the point? And then he reminded me, and I was sitting in the shower because that's my prayer time, shower time, because that's where the kids don't bother you. Nobody's coming in there. I locked the door and I'm like, don't bother me. Mm-hmm. And so I'm praying and God's like, you're not a menace to the devil if you're not going through things. And I was like,
yep. All right.
And all I could do is praise him for just a second. All I could do, because then all these stories came back to mind of it was the woman at the well. And she rejoiced. She ran back with this, and I just picture her with this loud, like, scream coming from this well, and she's just smiling, and she's just saying, he told me everything that I had just done. And I was like, oh, man. Yeah. All those trials that she went through, all those hard times she went through, and God still had her back. God still had everything. And there's so much that we have to remember, tying it all back to Job, but then during trials, we have trials and they are meant for us to go through. We are meant for such a time as this. I was meant for this trial. I need to go through this trial. God purposely did it because he knows I have the strength, or he's saying, hey, I need you to have the strength because I'm about to give you a good trial.
Right. I read a quote the other day by C.S. Lewis. He said, I want whenever I die that Satan and the demons rejoice because I'm out of the game.
Yes.
That's, There's a song by For Today, and as a matter of fact, I was just on another podcast with Mac Finner, and we were talking about this. There's a song called Devastator by For Today, and it talks about, meeting Satan on the battleground, that he will know my name, and when you live, I don't want to say a victorious life, when you live a warrior's life,
yes,
the enemy knows who you are.
Right.
And he has to compensate for you. Right. Because in a war plan, right, if you've ever watched any kind of war movie or whatever, you know the strengths of that army. If you don't, you're going to get wore out, right, pretty quick. You know the strength of that army.
Yes.
When Satan thinks of God's army, I want him to think, oh crap, he's got Anthony Coronado on his side.
Right. This is the verse that I never want to become true of me. It's Acts 19:15. And if you never read this, go read it. It says, one day the evil spirit answered them, Jesus I know, and Paul I know, but who are you? I never want that to be said about me.
Mm-mm.
I never want that. I want all, and this is a very bold statement. So when you say this,
be ready.
There's going to be attacks on you. But that's where the word comes in. That's where these trials come in, is where all these groups, everything we've said on the first segment of this podcast, that's where all this comes into play, is I want them to know that when everything is said and done, that I am a child of God. I am a child of the one true King, and I want to be a force to be reckoned with. I want them to know that my name is Kyler, and I am a child of God, and I carry the weight of Christ with me at all times.
That's right. And going back to Job, and Job is fascinating when we talk about this. I'm glad we started with Job, because you see, as Job goes through this trial and all these things are happening to Job, and he's tired, he's wore out, he's losing all his kids, you see him question God. Right. And I think that's so profound because we could do that. I can't tell you how many times I've had a conversation. I've been sitting on the side of my bed or in my car or in the shower or wherever, going through, what seems like the trial that's going to take me out. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And be like, God, do you think I'm flipping Job? What are you going to step in sometime? Like, are you there? Are you listening? Are you paying attention? And I'm sure don't act like you guys have never had that conversation before.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And here's the thing. You see this interaction with Job and God's answer is both terrifying and both profound all at the same time. He's basically like, were you there when I created the stars? Were you there when I created the foundation? And I'm paraphrasing,
right?
But the foundation of the earth that you're walking on. Were you there when that happened? Are you? And he gets in talking about like the Leviathan and the dinosaurs. And he describes what we would today call like a bronchosaurus or something. Are you capable of putting a hook in its mouth and guiding it along? Like, are you big enough, Job, to do that? And it puts your life in perspective. That really. What is happening to you is just, it's not really that big of a deal. You know what I'm saying? Like, in the grand scheme of things, here God is timeless, he created all things. And he's like, but then towards the end, he's like, he's like, do you not think that I can take care of you?
Right. Well, I like how it's in Job 40 that he talks about this. And this is verse 7. This is the NIV version, and I love this. It says, then the Lord spoke to Job out of the storm. His first words, brace yourself like a man. I will question you, and you shall answer me. It's like, hold up, just a second. You want to talk to me about all this? All right, let's talk. You want to do this? You have questions? I got questions too. I love how God just sometimes meets us at our own place where we're at. Like, he's like, you know what? I can match your sarcasm here. I can match your wittiness. You just wait, brace yourself like a man. I'll question you and you shall answer me. I just find that funny. So
yes.
Point that out.
Yes, it is. And sometimes sometimes that weight can be so heavy.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's all we can think about. Right. Like seriously, I mean, there have been times in my life I'm like, okay, this is it. Like, this is going to be the trial that's going to take me out.
Yes.
Like, Satan is out to get me. I'm done for. Even if I survive, I'll have nothing left.
Right.
You know what I mean? There'll be nothing left in the tank. God's going to allow Satan to take everything from me. Like, this is it. You know, and God's like, seriously? Really? Like, you have so little faith in me, you know? And then when you come out on the other side, right? Because we rely on the Lord, and we come out on the other side and we're like, oh yeah, he really did have everything under control the entire time.
He did. And that's the thing about trials is there's always an ending to the trial. I mean, you look at court trials, there's always, they seem like it's just hard to go through. I mean, they are revealing everything. They are tearing you down. They are letting everything come to light. But here's the thing with trials is we need everything that we've once held in the darkness brought to the light. We need things that are hurting us spiritually to be brought out, to be fixed, to be corrected. And that's what God does in our trials is he takes those small things that we are ashamed of, that we are afraid of, that we need corrected, and he brings them out. He brings the correction, and then that trial's done. There's always a blessing after the trial. And that's exactly what happened with Job. After the end of his whole trial, after the end of everything, after everything's been taken away from him, he was blessed doubly.
Yep. Yeah.
For everything.
Everything. God completely replaced and again, like you said, doubled everything he had.
Yeah.
You know, God's like, I have got you. I understand that this was tough. I get it, but it's okay. You know, and sometimes, you know, God has to put things in perspective for us. Yes. You know, that, yes, we're not nearly as important as we think we are.
Right.
Right. Not saying that our lives are not important. Not saying that God doesn't have a purpose for us. That's not what I'm saying. But in the grand scheme of things, I read a book one time called Fasting by Jensen Franklin. And he was talking about like our lifespan. And he equated it to a movie. Right. And he said, you know, and I'm paraphrasing, but he said, you know, those passing, the filler scenes, you know, where you just have people like walking in the background and you'll see somebody for one time in the entire movie for about a half a second. Right. That's like our lifespan in the grand scheme of life.
Right.
You know, like it just, we're just there and then we're gone. And we put so much stock in the amount of time that we're here. You know, and I heard somebody say JT, Jonathan Thurman had passed away, and they said, you know, it's sad that we measure life on years and not the quality of life that we have.
Right. You
know, that he was talking about the impact that JT had on our Popper Bluff. Yeah. You know, I mean, the impact that he had and stuff like that. It was so profound, you know, and here he was 19 years old. He's like, why do we measure life in years?
Yes.
You know, and I was like, man, that's pretty profound.
It is.
You know, and sometimes, and again, not saying that our life is not important, not saying that what we're doing, it doesn't have purpose, right? Because every one of us have got purpose for the time that we're here. But when we're going through these trials, we're like, God is against us. God is, he's abandoned me, where this is it. I'm done. I don't want to go on anymore. I don't want to fight anymore. The weight is more than what I can bear. I'm done. God's like, stop acting like a little 2-year-old. You know, I mean,
sort of fair.
Seriously. I mean, we do that. And you kind of see him treat Job that way. You know, when he was like, were you there? Yeah. Brace yourself like a man. Were you there when I created the stars?
Yeah. Do you have an arm like God's? Can your voice thunder like mine? No.
It's like, come on, man. You know, God's like, come on, bro.
Right. It's hilarious. This question, it is. When you're looking at it. Like, look at Behemoth, which I made along with you. Like, can you make that? No, you can't make that. Okay, then. Right. Just say it. You can draw a picture. You want to paint a painting real quick? No? Okay. Let's stop. Like, buck up, buddy.
That's right. You know, and basically what God's saying is like, hey, I'm God.
Yeah.
You know, regardless of what you're going through, I'm God.
Yes.
You may not understand, but I'm God.
Yeah.
And in the end, I've got you.
Yeah.
You know, and it's not like God was like, oh, I'm God, and then just left him.
Right.
Right. It was like, he's like, I'm God. I've got you.
Yes. But here's the thing that I also want to point out is when Job was saying this, we have to remember who we talk to. Sometimes we talk to, it's almost like, I did this with my kid the other day. She looked at me and I was trying to get her just to taste strawberries. I just wanted her to try strawberries once. And you don't have to like them. That's fine. I just want you to try it. And she goes, did you hear what mommy said? And I was like, do you know who you're talking to? Because I'm not that person. And I said, well, I don't care what mommy said. Daddy says you're going to try it. Anyways, but sometimes we forget that we were talking to the God of the universe. Mm-hmm. That's exactly what Job said. Job's talking this big, bad talk, in 39. But then Job 40, it says, the Lord said to Job, will the one who contends with the Almighty correct him? Let him who accuses God answer him. Then Job says, answered the Lord right here, I am unworthy. How can I reply to you? I put my hand over my mouth. I spoke once, but I have no answer. Twice, but I will say no more. It's like, oh, I now remember who I'm talking to.
Yeah.
It's like,
I have clearly overstepped my bounds.
Right. We have. But we have to remember that God is also not a God that can't take it.
Right.
He can take it, and he shows them that too. But we also have to remember while we're doing this, God had to remind him, like, I know I can take this, but I also need you to remember like who I am. Mm-hmm. Like I've done all of this and I can now take you through this.
Let's go.
Like, and that's the point of like Job here. And there's so much meat in the story of Job. And I've never looked at it that way, but it's so true. As God didn't tell him all these things to brag on himself. Mm-hmm. What he did was he was saying, yes, you've gone through all these hard things. You've done all these things and you've done it well. And you've said all these mean and hurtful things to me. And I get that, I know where you're at. I know the heart of you. Mm-hmm. But let me just remind you that I've done all this and I will continue to do this for you now. Right. Because he said, would you discredit my justice? Would you condemn me to justify yourself? Do you have an arm like a God? He's not saying all these things to be like, I'm bigger than you, better than you, stronger than you.
That's right.
Sorry, I had to pull that TikTok out of there. But what he's saying is, I've got you, bud. I will bring you back through this whole trial. I will take you to the end because where there is a good work that is done, I will finish the work. Mm-hmm. He never starts anything that he doesn't finish. Everything is brought to the good for them who love the Lord, for them who are called according to his purpose. And Job was definitely called according to the purpose.
That's right.
And that's what he says. And it's not a reminder to Job. He already knew it. He knew what was happening. God just needed to pull it back out to him again. So I guess it was a reminder. I think I said it was a reminder. But that's where we have to remember is God can take it, but don't forget who he is.
That's right.
Don't forget what he can do.
Yeah. And it's so awesome, to go back there. Yes, he was like, look, I'm God. Yes, kind of like what you were saying, Kyler. Yes, you've done all these things. You've fought this fight, and I understand that you are weary, but I'm God, not I'm God, and I'm God. Right. But he's like, hey, I'm God. I can handle your situation.
Yeah.
I can handle your situation. I have got you. You may think that your life is falling apart. It is not.
No.
I have got it under control. It may seem unfair. You may not understand what's going on, but I promise you, I have got you and you will be taken care of.
Yes.
And sometimes we just completely lose sight of that. Man, I'm so excited that we did this, and we've got so much more to cover. And so be looking as we continue this Weight of a Man, be looking for the other podcast and, whether we two or three of them, whatever we end up doing. But, first off, I want to give a plug for the book. Framework for Biblical Masculinity. Don't forget, if you've not got it yet, you need to go get it. I just did a book promotion podcast with Mac Finner and Frontal Low Podcast. Go check them out. And then I've got some more coming up. And guys, I'm so excited of what God's doing with the book, and I hope that it's blessing you. If it is, please contact me. I would love to hear from you. realmen@palaceofpraise.com. I would love to hear from you if you've got questions for us. And maybe you're the one that's going through the trial right now. Maybe you're the one that's feeling the weight, and you're like, I don't know that I can go on anymore. Email us, message us on social media, something, reach out to us. We will pray with you. We would love to hear from you. We will put you in contact with somebody that if we cannot help, that can help you. We will do whatever we can. And so know that God is for you, that he loves you. He wants to see you succeed as the leader of your home, your community, and your church. He wants to see you succeed as a man and as a leader. And as always, I want to end in a prayer. Holy Spirit, teach us to be leaders of our homes, of our communities, and our churches. Teach us to be godly, courageous men. In Jesus' name, amen.
You've been listening to Real Men Talk. If you'd like to get in touch with us, shoot us an email, realmen@palaceofpraise.com, or visit our website at realmenministries.us. You can also message us through social media. If you're a man age 16 and up and would like to be a part of the conversation, join us at the Palace of Praise every Thursday night at 6:30 p.m. If you don't have a home church, consider joining us for worship on Sundays at 10:30 a.m. and 6 p.m. Palace of Praise is located at 1400 Herschel Best Boulevard in Poplar Bluff, Missouri. New episodes of Real Men Talk drop every Thursday at 5 p.m. on all major podcast platforms. You can also find us on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, X, and Facebook. Real Men Talk is a production of Real Men Studios in cooperation with Palace Media Services.